All right. Side hustle to six figures. How do you build wealth beyond just real estate and within real estate? We are going to unpack this one. I'm pretty excited about this one. This is going to be a fun topic to talk about. This is the Growth Driver Podcast. Mike and Rachael Novak coming at you today. Let's jump right into it. So, how do you, obviously you get into real estate.
Yeah.
Right. And you start becoming a little bit successful. How does that then carry into other opportunities? And I realize it's a very broad question, but I want to kind of peel back layers to this item because this is a progression, right?
100%.
This is not something you just jump into and you're like, hey, I'm a badass real estate agent. I'm a badass real estate investor. I build and develop houses and tracts of land. Oh, I also do agent attraction. I've got my hand in all of these pots at once, right? That shit seems super overwhelming for most people, right?
100%.
So I really want to give people a path today on hey, if I'm getting started in real estate or if I found some success in real estate, how can I use that to really become a lever to create more wealth?
Yeah, I think number one, if you're getting into real estate as a side hustle, which a lot of people do, most people do not have the ability like we did to jump full throttle into real estate and leverage all the credit cards that we had for all of our tech that we needed to set up and our lead gen spend for the first month. Most people can't do that, right? That's a huge, huge, huge jump for most people. We're just crazy like that. What most people do is they get the real estate license and they start selling houses on the side. They work nights, they work weekends while they're also working their main gig until they start getting some momentum. So number one, from a side hustle to getting into that six-figure range, you have to be willing to work all the off hours to know that you're building into something, right? And the number one thing that you have to do first is get some freaking track record behind you. You have to be selling houses.
Momentum, right?
Momentum. Yeah. You've got to be selling houses. You've got to build a pipeline. You've got to have clients with reviews. You've got to start not just for the money, not just for the track record for your reputation, but obviously for your own confidence to be able to know that you can get into that and do that. So that's absolutely step one. Yeah.
So if I'm a part-time agent, am I crazy to think about other income streams and other businesses as a part-time agent? Do I have to be a full-time agent to do that?
I don't think you're crazy to think about it. I think that you need to be incredibly strategic with where your focus goes, right? Is if a lot of people get into real estate with the intent to someday become an investor. They want to build a portfolio. All these things sound super sexy, right? You want to do all these things and invest all this money. You've got to have money. You've got to have capital. You have to have a credit in order to borrow money. There are things you have to set up before you can get into that. So no, you don't have to be a full-time real estate agent to get into that, but you need to be good with money. You need to be smart enough to be able to leverage the things that you have or have enough capital to be able to do some of those things for sure.
Yeah. Okay. I could definitely agree with that. I mean, I think you can become a passive real estate investor pretty easily and do real estate part-time and have a 9-to-5 job. I know people that do that. They're firefighters, they have multiple days off in a row, which means they can work real estate on those days.
Exactly.
And they also own some rentals. That's a badass place to be.
100%.
That person is winning and winning big.
Yeah.
And that's definitely a viable way to go about doing things. If you want to 10X that shit though, I think you got to be all in real estate. You know what I mean? If you're going to play at the level that we're talking about, that we want to be at and that we like to be at, you got to commit to real estate, because real estate to me is really the foundation. It's the vehicle with which everything else is kind of built off of.
Yes. Well, and that's such a great point, because most people see real estate as the pinnacle, and then everything else they're oh, I'll just get into that next, and then that's going to be the next step. And really, real estate shouldn't ever end. Real estate should always remain the engine, the hub of all these offshoots and all these other areas of building wealth. But you can make multiple 6 and 7 figures just selling real estate. So taking focus off of that instead of what we'll probably get into, which is building leverage into that and scaling the sales of real estate and retail real estate. That's where you really want to get into if you want to make a bigger impact and building wealth in all these other areas.
Right. Yeah. When I think about different levels of realtors, I kind of think about the people that, they're selling 10 to 20 homes a year, but they kind of have a job. You know what I mean? It doesn't seem like a job because they control when they work and how they work, and their schedule and their freedom to some degree, but really they have a job, right? Yep. And then like at the next evolution of that becomes kind of like the business owner, right?
Yep.
And that's where people's eyes really start to open. And so I think the first thing I want to challenge people to do is like try to get into real estate full time. And then the next step from there is to go ahead and start buying back your time. Like buying back your time might be the single most important wealth concept we're going to share with you guys today. Mm-hmm. If you haven't read Dan Martell's Buy Back Your Time book, go read it. You're going to hire an assistant. Like by the time you're done reading the book, he does a great job of giving you a framework on how to do it. But that's really where the game starts to change, right? Because agents get caught up doing administrative work that pays $25 an hour, pulls them out of their sales lane. They start making less money. And now they're actually like on the reverse of building wealth. Now they're going backwards.
I think the statistic that you shared with me when we were talking about this the other day was that real estate agents actually spend 8% of their time on money-making activities, and 92% of their time, if they're a single agent, is literally spent on administrative work, and paperwork, in some sort of marketing, all the other things.
Yeah, Tom Ferry said that actually.
Okay.
He's the one. Yeah, when we took our team to the Tom Ferry event. And it's true. And agents do that for a variety of reasons, which we don't have to go down that rabbit hole today. But I think that you really have to, if you're going to take a major wealth building viewpoint to this, like I want to build a 7-figure or a multiple 7 or 8-figure empire, you got to start thinking about looking through the lens of buying back your time and shifting your focus into the things that make you the most amount of money in real estate, right?
Yep.
And this is where you can make some serious coin. Like you could have a 7-figure income if you can master this game.
So why do you think that some people stay at the job level of real estate? Like most people stay at the job level of real estate, right? As a single agent. Why do you think they do that?
It's because that's their skill set. You know, like just because you're a great real estate agent does not mean that you're a great business owner. And you have to actually set aside your realtor hat, put on your entrepreneur hat, and go build a business if you're going to do this. When I say building a business, I mean building operating procedures, processes, hiring people. Like this is hard shit to do. Right. This is stuff that people don't just know intrinsically how to do, right? Like
exactly.
They're serious skills. And on this side, you've got the real estate skills. On this side, you've got the entrepreneur skills. Very few people can carry over to that other side.
Yeah. And I also think that on top of all that, which is absolutely true, I think it's fear. I think there's a lot of people because you make good money in real estate as a single agent, right? A lot of people just look at the gross. They look at what they make, what the checks are that come in, and they don't think about the long term in this industry, right? Like when you and I are talking about building business and building wealth, we're looking decades down the road. We're thinking, how can we build a life and build a business and employ people and create, bread? We have multiple people in our company that are the breadwinners. We are the sole income for that person. Like that's an incredibly honorable place to be. Like it's a huge responsibility as well. But these people who will not hire somebody have a fear of not being busy enough or not making enough money to support that person. And it's valid unless you say, I will do this without fear. Like you have to be able to bring somebody in, buy back your time, and then go out and generate more and more revenue. And if you do not do that, if you're too afraid to do that, then you're going to be stuck in a job until you're 60, still showing houses to first-time home buyers, still doing the same thing, all the administrative work, in a job your whole life.
Yeah, you're definitely right about that. I mean, like Dale on our team is an example of this. Dale is a fantastic real estate agent, and he's actually a decent business operator too. He's told me straight up, I don't like being responsible for other people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he doesn't like the stress of having to make sure that he's bearing enough fruit for this person to win as well. It just like it gives him massive anxiety, and he doesn't like the quality of life that gives him because he's stressed out nonstop about it. So a lot of people have that fear. Some people can overcome it and get past it. Some can't. And either way is totally fine. But I just want to make sure we're clear about this progression. Like we've gone full-time into real estate. We've now bought back time, and we're doing things that are the highest and best use of our time. That's really like the first part of this wealth building kind of concept, in my 100%. Opinion, using real estate as the hub, as the foundation, as the vehicle to have all these other opportunities that we're going to talk about and unpack here in just a couple of minutes.
Right.
So,
if you can have a partner, an ISA, a TC, administrative teammate, helping you with all this stuff, pulling all the administrative stuff off of your plate, not having to sit inspections, not having to go show all the properties, but you're involved in the big parts of it, the negotiating, the conversion of the client, the signing of the client, coaching those people. Not only are you helping those people level up their skill sets and creating an income for those people, but you're also able to utilize your time again, probably get into it, utilize that all that time, buying back all this time in order to put focus into other areas of wealth building, which is the point.
And I want to use an analogy of a doctor's office, right? Like if you go to a doctor's office, does the doctor answer the phone? Does he greet you when you walk in? No, there's a receptionist.
Does he look at your file and file it
Does
in the
cabinet? Does he
cabinet?
weigh you in when you come into the back? Does he take your pulse and your vitals? No, the doctor comes in to do the doctor shit, right? So what is the doctor shit as an agent that you have to do? And it's the exact things you just said. Set the appointment, meet the people, sign the people, negotiate the deal.
Exactly.
Those 4 things. Anything else, you can probably add leverage around you to take that weight off your shoulders.
And again, like,
it's just not going to make you the level of income that you want.
Yeah. I mean, we've created in our business, people with the skill sets of an agent, but they have the stability of a job, right? They have income, and then they already have earnable income. They have more opportunities to earn income based on skill sets as they build them. So now not only are you buying back your time, but one of your partners can make really great money at 22 years old. Like that is a very positive thing, right? And it's for the people who are okay with that stress, right? We're okay carrying that stress because we know that we'll do whatever it takes to make sure that we continue to win for them. And if not, that's obviously okay too.
Right. So, okay, we've got to the point where we've bought back lots of time.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing things that make us the most amount of money. The next step, I think, then becomes, okay, do I want to scale up and build a team? Like, is that the lever I want to pull? Or am I happy here and it's time to start adding some other revenue streams and other businesses in? This is a really good time to hit the pause button and say, hey, what do I want? Right? And a lot of people, they don't pause. They just go right to the team like we did. We didn't pause and say, hey, do we really want a team? Right? And I really do recommend that you take a step back and say, do I want to do that? Because it's not as sexy as people think. Like we've done a couple of podcasts about the good, the bad, the ugly about teams. And it's definitely not for everybody. And teams don't make a ton of money. It's kind of an unglamorous job being a team leader, right? So
there's nothing sexy.
Right. It's not nearly as fun as selling houses. I can promise you that, right? So ask yourself that question. If you want to go down the team route, go down the team route, add that as an income stream. Stay in production, please, if you do this. Just want to make sure you do that because your personal production will make you far more than your team ever will. But now we start thinking about adding on other businesses. And this is like, as you know, this is an obsession of mine right now. And I keep saying the same term to you, synergistic business opportunities, right? What is synergistic to real estate? And when you start looking at through this lens, you see a sea of abundance, right? There's just so many different things that tie into real estate, right? And it's really amazing when you look at it. And so the first one that I think is obviously becoming a real estate investor, right? That makes a lot of sense. You can start owning some income, cash flow properties. It's pretty straightforward to do that. And you have access to listings before they come on the market, right? So go on those listing appointments where the person doesn't want to list the house. They don't want to do a typical sale and buy the freaking house for them, right?
Exactly.
Buy that house that's really ugly that you can turn into a flip.
That's for sure. Like the easiest and most synergistic thing to start building another wealth, having another revenue of wealth is to do that, is to start buying properties and holding them, or buying distressed properties or properties that need some work and flipping them, right? Like that by far would be the first thing. So what are some parameters that you would put in place for somebody who's like, okay, sweet, I'm going to start looking through the lens of every single one of my listing appointments, looking through the lens of an investor as opposed to a listing agent. What kind of things would you put in place?
I mean, you need a process, right? Like you need to treat that like it's its own business because it really is a separate business from the real estate sales organization, right? So I think defining criteria on what you will buy and what you won't buy is probably the most important thing. That way you can say no to things that don't fit that buy box and you can just move on to listing their house in a conventional way or finding them an investor from one of your other clients, you know? But I think it's really looking at it from a business perspective and just saying like, does this make sense? And do I have systems and processes in place to actually do this flip? Or am I going to be that agent that comes out here and I'm sweeping the floors, I'm cleaning up the garbage, and I'm babysitting this because I can't afford and I don't know how to actually run a construction project, or I just want to have that experience. And you know, that's okay, but you have to realize how much money that's going to cost you to do it, right?
So that's where I was going with this was like, if you're an agent and you've never bought another property and flipped it, or you've never bought a property and held it, really, really important that you bring somebody else into it with experience. So if you have a colleague who has done flips, or if you have a client who's an investor who does flips, like tiptoe into this, people. Like, do not just jump in full throttle with your cash and hope for the best. Like, money is made when you purchase, which we've talked about a lot of times. Money is made when you purchase the property. Everything after that is just price control, like as much as possible. So if you have somebody in your life who's done this before, go halvesies with them on it. So or if you have somebody who can manage the project and then you can just be the investor, great, that part too. So find ways to get into it, to tiptoe in before you just jump into something.
Right. And run how much money, like run a pro forma on it. A pro forma is just going to break down your acquisition price, your improvements, your cost of financing, your soft cost of selling it, and then total up how much money you think you would make at like a conservative scenario. And then divide that by how many hours you think you're going to invest in it. And then go back to how much money you make per hour selling real estate and ask yourself if that makes time. It makes sense, right? Does it make sense to swap that time one for the other?
Yeah,
and
100%.
It could. But it could not too. And here's the problem is everyone loves the ego feel of saying I'm an investor, right?
Yep.
I flip houses. I'm an investor. Pretty cool. Okay. That's only fucking cool if it makes you more money than selling houses.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Well, let's go back just for a second to that, because you mentioned how much money per hour you make selling houses.
Yes.
So let's talk about activity that you can do where you're making a lot of money and activity that you don't make as much money. And how do you figure that out?
Yeah. So for me, I like to look at, I'll usually ask someone a question. So like, Rachel, how much money do you make per year? And you'll say, Mike, I make $225,000 a year, right? If you make $225,000 a year, you make $125 an hour, right? If you're working 40 hours a week, just simple math. So that gives you a very simple lens to look at things and start making decisions on whether what you're about to do is a $125 an hour task or activity, or if it's an administrative task that's more like $30 an hour, right? And when you understand that, when you actually take the time to do the math, understand what you made per hour last year, then you can focus your energy on those things that make you more money. There's 2, 3, 4 things that you do in your real estate business that make you all of the money. You just don't want to do more of them for some reason, right?
Exactly. Well, what happens is like, people are sick of doing the same things, right? Like it's the boring, it's the monotonous, it's the same things over and over every single year that actually get the results. But real estate agents, of course, see a shiny object, they see a new lead source, they see a new technology, they see a new project, a new something that's fun and exciting, and it feels more productive to go learn something new, as opposed to staying the course and continuing to spend the hours, what I call them the green hours, right? The money-making hours, doing the same monotonous things that are actually going to make you money in the long term.
Right. Exactly. And the other side of the coin of that is like, how do you enjoy spending your time?
Right.
Like, so some people, it's worth it to them to make less per hour.
Yep.
If they're doing something they just totally love. And if you can afford to do that, and if that's in alignment with your goals, then hey, that's totally cool. I'm just talking about this from a ruthless perspective of dollars per hour.
Yeah.
And it's a simple yes or no at that point. So it's just simple math.
I think that's a really great point, because I do think that there are a lot of really fantastic agents out there that really enjoy parts of listing a property or parts of the walkthroughs or like spending time with the clients at the inspection. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. So I don't want to be on here being like, oh, you shouldn't be doing that stuff. If that's the kind of business that you want to run and you are perfectly fine making that $100 an hour, $125 an hour, you don't want leverage, you enjoy doing those things, continue to do that. $225 is a fantastic income. It's a great life having that, much money. We're talking about the people who are like, I want a trajectory to make multiple 6 figures and get into the 7 figures. I want multiple wealth streams. I want multiple revenue streams. We're talking to those people. We're talking ruthless. We're talking, I want to bring people in and create jobs and be able to get the highest and best use of my time at all times.
Right.
That's what we're talking
I'm
about.
a business operator.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at it from that perspective.
Exactly.
That's the person we're talking to right now for sure. So on the real estate investing front, like I said, you can do fix and flips. You can do fix, flip, hold. You can do just multifamily acquisitions. There's like a whole like subcategory for this. Some of our friends in real estate have been very successful with this. Like Jim Black owns like 60 doors, all acquired through his real estate sales team. These opportunities he would have never had without his real estate business, because these were shitty listing appointments that turned into deals he ended up buying. So again, this is why I said in the beginning of this conversation, this is all about using the sales team as the foundation, right? It's what opens up and unlocks the doors for all these other opportunities.
Yeah.
Okay.
In your words, the real estate, business, the sales of retail real estate is the nucleus, right? It's like everything comes back to that.
Yeah, exactly. So after you've kind of dove into the real estate investment side of things, you could definitely get into the mortgage side as well. I know a lot of real estate agents that are also loan officers. I'm not really talking about it from that perspective right now. I'm talking about people that want to own a mortgage company, right? If you want to go into the mortgage business, I think it makes a lot of sense. Maybe you've got 2-3 buyers a month that need financing. You could make some extra money off of deals you're already creating, right? You're just touching the deal a little bit more frequently by doing that. So for us, we've created a joint venture in mortgage at this point. That was a big thing we did this year. It's been fruitful so far. I'm optimistic about it for next year as well. It took us a long time to get to that point where we found the right company that was the right values fit, that could actually execute to the standards that our team had.
Exactly.
But that is definitely a door you can unlock as well. It can make you a lot of extra money.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that being able to have access to like the mortgage side, you have relative control over two huge parts of the client service, right? The client fulfillment. So now you're going to serve them and your team's going to serve them. And then you also have partial control over how the loan officer is going to help serve them. So it creates a very synergistic experience for the clients, which is much better. And when you're talking about personal properties, personal investments, when you're talking team member investments, like people in your world, you have more control over the pricing as well.
You could get your own deals done at cost.
Yes.
You could call them and say, hey, my mom wants to buy a house. Don't charge her any profit.
Yeah,
things
exactly.
like that. So
Exactly.
The mortgage side is definitely really interesting. I think you need to have a certain amount of volume for this to pay off. Like I would say at least 30 to 40 deals that you could feed through the mortgage company a year would start to make some sense. As far as like dollars and cents go, I mean, you could probably average between 0.5% to 1% of the loan amount as actual profit back in your pocket at the end of the day. So
very synergistic.
Next up, this is kind of an extension of the investor and of the flips. It's actually getting into building and development. Like this is the PhD level of flipping, right? Investing. This is where lots of money is made in real estate and lots of money is lost too, right? Like this,
as we know,
this is the game that you can't just dabble in. Like if you're going to get into the development world, be ready to step up and be ready to put lots of money into it and take lots of risk. It can be very successful. I made, I honestly, I'll just put it out there because this is a real podcast. I was worth $7 million at 21 years old as a developer, right? That was huge, right?
Yeah.
And it all came from real estate development and building, right?
Yep.
So you can make a lot of money fast in development. I also lost $7 million faster than I made it. It took me 3 years to make it. It took me about 3 months to lose it. So,
and I picked well. It was two months after we got married.
Right. I actually just lost that money to make sure you weren't marrying me for the money. Right.
Nailed it.
Yeah. It was just a confidence test for you.
Did
You
I pass the test?
So then we moved forward. Yeah. Wasn't the Great Recession or anything. So, but this is a really, really good opportunity, but you need to be ready to play big if you're going to do this. We're not currently doing this. It's something we've talked about a lot. We do represent a couple of builders and developers in our area, and we're deeply involved in their business, almost like at a partnership type level, which I love. I freaking love working with those people. It's like a passion of mine to help these people just because that's my background is real estate development and building. But in my opinion, if you're going to step into development, and you're not going to do it with like big partners, you probably need to have $1.5 million ready to roll. Yeah. Like I'm willing to put $1.5 million into the pot and I'm ready to start playing ball. And that would get you moving, like in our market, on probably doing like an 8 to 12 lot plat where you can cash that out, do the improvements, and then you're going to still need to finance the verticals with a bank, right? Exactly. But you now have a strong equity position and you're going to need to develop a really good track record before banks can start lending you money. Lenders are just totally risk adverse to developers and builders. They got so burned in 2008. I mean, literally, I remember with Rachael in 2008, like every week on Wednesday or Thursday, I would text her and say, hey, I wonder which bank is going to get closed this Friday, because the FDIC was rolling into town in Washington here, and they would close one of these lenders, one of these banks that was regional in nature, and that had loaned millions of dollars to developers like myself, and they couldn't get repaid and they went out of business, right? It was a scary ass place to be.
It was a rough couple months.
But banks have changed the way they loan money to developers. You have to have a track record to get that, and you need to have a big equity position, which is like where you contribute all the land without lien on it, like totally free and clear.
Well, and I want to be really clear, like, one of the things that we did, and one of the things that, everybody did at the time, was leverage their primary properties for that investment, right? Like they would leverage almost everything, get a big HELOC, leverage their entire primary property to the hilt. And that is what led to us losing all of the homes that we owned at the time. Yep. So one of the things that we do not do is we do not pull a home equity line of credit on our personal property in order to do that. If and when we do get into that, and I would recommend anybody who is thinking about it, you need to have capital, or you need to have other like maybe investment properties that are separate from your primary property that you can tap into.
Yeah, I think that's a really personal thing. Like, Ed Stroud, another friend of ours, Ed owns 250 doors in real estate. I mean, he's a big player as an investor.
And a building company.
And a building company. And he leverages his house all the time for stuff, but he's got that risk tolerance where he's okay with that. Our risk tolerance is less than that at this point after losing all that money. So, but that's real estate development. I think this is going to be the select few that get into this, but I know that there are some really, really good developers that start as agents.
Yep. Agreed. What else we got? What else are we doing?
Let's talk about insurance and just touch on that a little bit. Again, everyone that buys a house from you, what do they need?
Insurance.
They need homeowners insurance, right? So some of our friends have gotten into owning insurance companies or joint venturing on insurance companies. Let's talk about the joint venture term for just a second. Like, why are we throwing this term out there? Because, why are we not building these companies from scratch ourselves?
I mean, again, like you have to gauge what your time is worth. And if you throw yourself into trying to build companies from scratch, as well as maintaining a real estate company or a real estate team or, real estate investing side or whatever, you're going to take your eye off the ball and it's going to be all consuming. Whereas if you're able to joint venture with somebody who already may have a structure, who already may have a staff, who already may have everything in place, the framework in place in order to make a successful company, and all they need is an investor, all they need is a partner in that company, you're going to get off the ground way more quickly. They may already have a book, where they've already got investors or insurance companies that they're brokering. So you're stepping into an operating system of a company as a JV, as opposed to starting from complete scratch and trying to build something again.
Right. I don't think we would have ever gotten into mortgage without a joint venture, right? No. I'm not going to go get my mortgage license. I don't really want to get involved in learning all of the nuances of mortgages. I know plenty of them just from being a real estate agent, and I don't really like that world. And you have to learn like a whole new industry, right? Like it takes years to do that. I mean, it takes years to master the industry. And so you're really shortening that curve. We can find a great joint venture. For us, I think what we look for is, can we contribute, like you said, the capital or the deals, right? If it's one of those two things, or the expertise too, like when it comes as like a business operator, right? Not for that industry, but just like how to run the business better or how to improve the business. Those are the three kind of upsides for us, I think, that we contribute.
And I think a big part of it too, like a reason to joint venture as opposed to build something from scratch, is if you're trying to learn a whole new industry and you're trying to build a whole new framework of a company in an industry you're not familiar with, not only is the learning curve going to be significantly steeper, but the service level to the clients, right? It's almost, in my opinion, like if I think about this on a professional level, it's almost selfish of me to say, I'm going to build this from scratch and assume that I'm going to serve that client better than somebody who already has a framework in place that we can JV, right? So if at the end of the day, our job is to give white glove 5-star service to our clients and serve them the best possible that we absolutely can, then it's probably going to be with a structure already in place with people who already know what they're doing. I don't have to learn the industry. I can just take part in it and be an investor in it.
Yeah. Speed to inception is so much faster.
100%.
Right? The amount of mistakes made is way less.
Exactly.
So it makes a ton of sense. I think we would only get involved in insurance if it was a joint venture.
Yeah. Same thing. Exactly.
Yeah. Same. All right. So the last one I think that we should talk about that's really synergistic to real estate sales is agent attraction. Like this has been a big one over the last 6-7 years now. I mean, EXP was like the first one to the party on this, really. And you saw like a lot of people are running big real estate teams that were really successful in real estate start to get into agent attraction. Why do you think that was?
I think that they saw the potential for a lot of what they were doing anyways, right? The mentoring of people, the collaboration that they were trying to bring to the table, coaching people. It really has shifted my mind, of course, being at Real now, in regards to what RevShare is. RevShare got a really dirty reputation because there were so many people that were so focused on recruiting that it became its own. Grew its own legs and became its own entity. And really, what like RevShare is and what agent attraction is, it's a vested interest in other people's business, right? Like we have a vested interest in every single one of the several hundred people that we're partnered with at Real. Like we want them to succeed. Because when they succeed, we succeed. And just like in real estate sales, when I sell a house, I also get paid. When I'm working with a seller on a listing, when the house sells, they get their equity, I get my paycheck. Like this is a very normal economic exchange of value where I now have a vested interest in this person's business. I have a vested interest in them winning. And when they win, I win a little bit too. So it becomes a natural synergy and a great tack on to any sort of wealth or revenue building, when you're able to have that option.
Yeah, I think if you're naturally a mentor, like you're saying, like you're already in conversation, helping people out. That's the place to be at for agent attraction. Who would that maybe not be a fit for?
I think the people who that's not really a focus of them. Like there's some real estate agents out there that are phenomenal real estate agents, but they don't necessarily have the synergy. They don't really love like taking the time to train people or taking the time to mentor people. Or maybe somebody who hasn't really built a lot of systems or processes into their business that would be shareable. Right. You and I have always been open books. We love collaborating with people. We love to see other people win. We're both very passionate about coaching people because we see potential in everybody around us. Right. And we want to bring everybody up around us. So I don't know if there's any other people you think it wouldn't be for.
Well, I mean, sometimes I'll talk to agents and ask them if they're interested in agent attraction. Let's say no, they just feel like it's a distraction, right?
Sure.
What I have seen people do is I've seen them, get into agent attraction. They stop selling real estate, and that's a really bad place to be at. I think this has to be an accessory to selling real estate. You can't, for any of these things, you can't stop selling real estate.
Right.
Like, if the foundation is selling real estate, and you pull the foundation out, what happens? The house crumbles, right? So you have to keep the main thing the main thing. Yeah. These are other ways that you can create income streams and wealth, long-term, mega wealth, but they have to be, behind the real estate sales team. That has to stay in front. So.
Yeah, exactly. Totally agree.
What about outside of real estate? I mean, we dabbled in restaurants. Would you recommend that to anyone?
I like to say I would not wish owning and operating a restaurant on my worst enemy.
Yeah.
It is terrible.
Yeah, I would not recommend doing that. Yeah. Any other industries that you don't recommend people getting into?
Don't recommend people getting into?
Yeah, that are just like totally out of sync with real estate or just, people lose a lot of money in.
I mean, a lot that I can think of, but I don't know anything specific.
Yeah, restaurants is the big one. I think. Restaurants and investing in other people's businesses where you don't understand the business, I think is really the most dangerous thing. Because once people know that you've got some money or whatever, they're going to ask if you want to invest in everything, right? Sure. And you got to be really careful. Like this is why guys in the NFL lose so much money because they do really stupid bullshit investments with all their friends and all their buddies want just $100,000 here, $100,000 there, $100,000 there. And pretty soon they have no money left. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I think you got to be very careful about just investing in any business because it's a business opportunity.
Yeah. No, absolutely true. I think that there are exceptions to everything. So there's going to be people that, I know a real estate agent who owns a couple of coffee shops and they do very, very well. And she enjoys kind of the management of them. It's stressful, but she enjoys management of them. So if that is synergistic to a real estate company, great. Like go ahead and do that. I don't know how profitable they are, but that's it. With restaurants, I think number one, we're scorned because we owned restaurants for 10 years. We lost a lot of money in that industry because we invested everything back into that as opposed to continuing to build wealth personally. But I think the biggest reason is real estate is such an incredible way to build wealth and to make money because you actually aren't holding on to any inventory, right? Like unless you're an investor or unless you're you're a landlord and you're holding rentals, of course that's technically inventory, you have overhead. But as a real estate agent, you don't own the properties you're selling. You don't have any overhead in regards to working with buyers to purchase a property. You're really just the broker of all of these deals. In the restaurant world, there's a lease in place. There's, the finishes inside the restaurant. There's inventory of food and alcohol. I mean, there is so much money that just sits on the shelves until it's used and sold that it can be just an absolute devastation when
you just hit the nail on the head on one of the main reasons I think real estate is such a great opportunity to get into, and it's because of the inventory factor.
Right.
It's one of the few industries where you don't own the inventory you're selling. Somebody else pays for it, which is pretty cool.
And the barrier of entry is, super, super low. Like you can you can literally get licensed and be ready to write up a contract to help somebody buy or sell real estate for less than $1,000 investment.
Yeah. Barrier to entry is low. Barrier to success, that's a whole other story.
100%. Yeah. That's a different podcast.
All right. Awesome. If you want to get in touch with us, you could find us on meetthenovaks.com. I'm at The Real Mike Novak on Instagram. You can find me and message me there.
And I am at Rachael Novak with the extra A on Instagram.
We'll be back next week.